Matthias, here we are, our third little interview today. Um, at the end of the last one, I thought I'd like to ask you a question. I'll take this direction. Let me explain for a moment. Gail was on a Zoom today, and she came back and said it's absolutely great connecting with people in different parts of the world. But she says there's a worldview that she hits often, which theologically, eschatologically is Armageddon's around the corner, watch out for the mark of the beast. And it all feeds in, whether you're a Christian or not, with a kind of a negative view of the world. So, from a
Mhm.
Christian point of view, it's a pretty evil place. We know where the devil lives. It's out there, and I'm glad I don't have to live in it. Um, Two questions. The first one, I guess, is pretty obvious. How damaging is that kind of worldview as a
Mhm.
believer? And when we come to rethink, how would you want people to rethink on some
Mhm.
of those big issues, the eschatological ones and just the worldview ones?
Yeah, I think that the damage is pretty obvious once that you look to the world and see how people, where people are going from that. So it does not produce any sort of life, right?
Yeah,
It's like no life
yeah,
because you can do this, you can do that, you can do that. And once we were talking, I remember the text of First John 5:19. That's part of the argument that this dualistic people uses to as a premise, and they said that the whole world is under the control of the evil one.
yeah.
So they take this verse out of the context and interpret in a way that, okay, the whole world is under the evil's um, control, and that means that we cannot live in the world
Hmm.
because the world as a material space and time, in material space time, it is demoniac.
Yeah,
It is from the devil.
yeah,
That's really tough to say because when we read the scripture, especially the Jewish Bible, we see a world created by God who is very good,
yeah,
as He says.
yeah,
So how do we deal with this difference in the narrative?
yeah.
In one hand, we have been influenced by a philosophical understanding of the world,
Hmm.
Platonism, a new Platonism,
Yeah,
where we see the world as this this demoniac place where we have to go to heaven and not with our bodies because our bodies are bad, our bodies
hmm,
are sinful. So yeah, that has created the whole evangelical
yeah.
culture, right?
And just jumping in, do you see, because it'd be a little bit my experience, but I'm interested your perspective, having lived in different parts, that it more affects, dare I say, places that have seen real, what we would call a real move of God in the last 20, 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, the phenomenal growth of charismatic Pentecostal Christianity in your own country, Brazil, Argentina, the Far East, that there's more of a dualism in there than there is,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in Europe,
Mm-hmm.
among the churches in Europe, the Christians in Europe, where some people might look on a bit cynically and say they've lost their way. I have a very
Yeah.
different viewpoint, of course. But is it more, in your experience, more the dualism more visible where charismatic Pentecostal Christianity has really mushroomed? Or is that oversimplifying it?
I think that's maybe oversimplifying. Of course, that we can see a lot in these Pentecostal charismatic movements, uh, and of course that I'm looking for Brazil right now. But we also see the same dualistic view in Reformed churches,
Hmm.
not in the same way that we see
Hmm.
in the Pentecostal movement, because I do think that Pentecostal and charismatic movement are, they look more to the outside. So what you wear, where
Yeah.
you go, but the fundamentalistic perspective
Yeah.
are in both place.
Yeah.
So I do think that we can see it in reformed traditions too, not in the way that we see in the Pentecostal charismatic movement,
Yeah.
but we still see this negativity towards the world.
Now, going back to your rethink course and what you're developing, and clearly dualism, uh, Neoplatonism, etc., all of that, you will be asking, you'll be saying, hey, here are the lenses that have been given to us. We need to
Mhm,
get rid of them, or we
mhm,
need to at least reconsider
mhm, mhm.
um, how we view the world. So let's just say for a moment, practically speaking, people go through the whole process of rethinking, re-questioning. Where practically is that going to take us if we get out of the dualism and we
I,
manage to jettison that? Where would that take us practically?
I think that it would open new ways of possibilities and shapes that the church would never take in that previous context. So I think that would revitalize the church in ways that we cannot say exactly where we are going with it, because in my experience I have never experienced
Yeah.
that. I have never seen that yet. I
Okay.
hope to see,
Yeah.
but I do think that we would be in places that otherwise we couldn't be, and raising a testimony of God's sovereign, whatever this that mean, act in the world.
Okay. Yeah. So you would see this as a big area where we have got to rethink.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you go as far as to say it's like something that has got injected into the Christian faith, the dualism, and
Mhm.
it has subsequently shaped so much of Christian faith in the Western world, and we really have got to go to the heart of it. And this is a big one, the
Yeah,
dualism.
yeah, absolutely. I do think that uh, I'm not gonna say all, but I'm gonna say a lot of people. I do think that the gospel that a lot of people believes are not the gospel of Jesus Christ,
Okay, that's quite a
but
big
it's
statement
some
there.
kind of Plato gospel,
Uh huh.
Platonism gospel,
Yeah.
you know, that created a whole different idea of what means to be Christian
Yeah.
and what we ought to believe in order to go to heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
that's part of the work that we have to do.
yeah.
It's not simply to announce what is the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also to deconstruct the misunderstandings that grew up around it.
Yeah. That's a good one and quite a big one there.
Yeah, it is.
Quite a big one in terms of, again, without putting words in your mouth, that the gospel as I say we, as we have known it and heard it and probably proclaimed it,
Mm,
needs a radical deconstruct
yeah,
till we get back to something else. So I think what you're probably doing is pushing me to do another interview with you, and the question will be very simple. But yeah, but a big one to explore. So
yeah.
I look forward to that, Matthias. Thanks for your
Sure.
time, and I hope those watch this have enjoyed it, and we'll be back another day. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. Bye.